Chapter 66, Operation of the Original Demon Cave. Just as Han Sha-O was privately celebrating with himself and was about to open his mouth and accept, another dwarf suddenly intervened and said, "Bennett, the village chief said that we can't bring humans into the village. Have you forgotten?" "But Benson, he saved us from the hands of those forest troll scoundrels." Bennett looked at the dwarf and responded, "I know, but we must listen to the village chief or we'll be punished." Benson said stubbornly, no problem, I won't be going." "It's very nice to meet you. I have been adventuring in this area lately. Perhaps we'll run into each other again. Farewell." Han Sha-O understood that he couldn't be overly hasty when dealing with dwarves. It wouldn't be the matter of a second to receive their approval and friendship, so he immediately opened his mouth to speak up. "Dear friend, we are truly sorry. This is a wineskin of beer that we brewed. Please treat it as a token of our gratitude. I hope you can forgive us." Bennett took out a wineskin and handed it over to Han Sha-O, speaking apologetically. Han Sha-O had hoped that they would forge a decent set of weapons in return, but he naturally wouldn't express this now. He smiled and accepted the wineskin, humbly expressing his understanding, and left along with the little skeleton. If his magic could be trained to the true demon realm, Han Sha-O would naturally be able to refine magical weapons on his own, but if Han Sha-O wanted a decent weapon right now, obtaining it through the dwarves was actually a good method. There was a magical treasure called Demon Slayer Wretch. It was a bit longer than a dagger but a bit shorter than a sword. Its two edges were cuttingly sharp without parallel, and its tip a keen triangular spine. After activating it, the Demon Slayer Wretch would reap enemy heads in mid-flight. It was an incredibly frightening weapon left behind in Chu Kanglan's memories. With Han Sha-O's current magical training, he definitely couldn't refine iron items and directly create the magical treasure Demon Slayer Wretch. However, Han Sha-O wanted to use the dwarves to forge a prototype and then slowly improve on it with his magic first. When he found the appropriate materials and his magical training had reached an appropriate stage, he would start over and refine it from scratch a couple of times, forming a perfect Demon Slayer Wretch. After returning to the Cemetery of Death, Han Sha-O stopped in the empty plot of land in front Black Moat. There were bone fragments all over the ground. The Cemetery of Death never saw the light of the sun because of the enchantment, and the sky was shrouded in a thick cloud of gray clouds. Han Sha-O felt quite close to the surroundings, and that the thick gloom inside was very suited to necromancy creatures. Souls of the fallen soldiers, heed the Dark Herald's call and reveal your existence. Skeletal warriors slowly appeared in front of Han Sha-O one after another as Han Sha-O continuously chanted the skeletal warrior incantation. Han Sha-O finally felt that his mental strength had been slightly depleted when 5 skeletal warriors had appeared in the open space. He stopped his summoning at this moment. Although Han Sha-O's mental strength had greatly improved compared to before, he was limited by his ability to control them, so including the little skeleton, he could control 6 skeletal warriors. After releasing his mental strength, Han Sha-O gave a command and the 6 total skeletal warriors started moving, bone daggers in hand according to Han Sha-O's commands. A few oddly shaped deep pits and gullies slowly formed on the ground according to Han Sha-O's mental manipulations and the dance from the bone daggers of the skeletal warriors. The gully in the middle connected these deep pits like a long line, and when looking at it from afar, the gully connected deep pits looked like the grimacing face of a ghost that was roughly 6 meters wide. The deep pits formed the nose, eyes and ears of the grimacing ghost, and it looked a bit sinister and evil. The original demon cave was a matrix left behind by Chi Kanglan for the refinement of original demons. 18 specters needed to be placed within the original demon cave for them to slaughter and swallow each other through the operations of the matrix. Only the 3 most powerful specters would survive in the end, and they would be refined into original demons after the operation and concentrated refinement of the original demon cave. The original demon cave needed to operate for at least 36 days, and it would continue to absorb the yin chi from the heavens and earth during this time. The refiner would need to feed it 6 drops of fresh blood every day and inject magic yuan into it. When the original demon was formed, it would have a direct mental link with the refiner and could soundlessly invade the opponent's body. When the original demon made its way into the enemy's body, it would automatically eat away at the enemy's vitality and blood. In Han Sha-O's memories, demonic practitioners called the original demon one of the demon generals. According to their own level of training, demonic practitioners could refine 4 demon generals that were of different levels. They were respectively divided into Original Demon, Yin Demon, Mystical Demon, and Spirit Demon. Of these four, the Original Demon was actually the lowest level general, and its method of refinement was the easiest. It only needed the yin qi between heaven and earth and the fresh blood of the mnemonic practitioner. Of course, because of this, the power of a small demon general such as the Original Demon was also the weakest. Many things could harm it. Flames and ice could demolish it even if it entered an enemy's body. As long as the enemy possessed enough true yuan and magical yuan, it could also kill it from within their body. However, with Han Sha-O's level of training, he could only refine such minor demon generals. Not only was his current level not up to the task of refining stronger demon generals like the mystical demon, but he also temporarily didn't know the method to. Han Sha-O refined the Original Demon in order to use them as a scouting tool on one hand, and on the other to render some assistance to Han Sha-O when they invaded an enemy during battle. The enemy would at least have to split their concentration to deal with the Original Demon, and in that way Han Sha-O would have the opportunity to act. If the enemy was too weak, then just the invasion of the Original Demon would be enough to kill him. When the Original Demon Cave was complete, Han Sha-O commanded the skeletal warriors to clean up the Original Demon Cave. Relying on the round green ball and the same method as before, Han Sha-O trained his mental strength for a night, and on the second day exhausted all of his mental strength to summon 18 wraiths, placing them all within the Original Demon Cave. Wraiths were from another dimension and on the same level of existence as the specters that Han Sha-O already understood. After learning necromancy magic, Han Sha-O didn't need to venture out to collect these wraiths at all. He merely needed a simple incantation to take care of it all. This was truly exceedingly convenient. When the 18 wraiths had entered the Original Demon Cave, a chilly wind suddenly whipped around the surroundings, and currents of cool presence aggregated from all over the cemetery of death and into the Original Demon Cave. The concentration of the yin qi greatly exceeded Han Sha-O's expectations. At this moment, Han Sha-O suddenly remembered that whether it was necromancy magic or his training of magic, they all walked the path of evil. These two roads were both different and evil cults in their respective worlds. They had much in common, and it was half the effort with twice the results when they were used in tandem, saving Han Sha-O much effort. When the Original Demon Cave had absorbed enough yin qi, the grimacing outline of the ghost face that formed the Original Demon Cave suddenly seemed to become alive, twisting with endless changes. Spheres of black air rose from the 7 orifices of the ghost face. When he saw this scene appear, Han Sha-O immediately understood that all was as his speculations. The wraiths can act as pseudo-specters and become the foundational material of the Original Demon Cave. As Han Sha-O bit his finger and dropped 6 drops of fresh blood in the Original Demon Cave, and after he infused it with his magical yuan, the 18 wraiths suddenly sank into a berserk fervor and emitted ghastly screams, continuously battling and slaughtering each other to vie over the 6 drops of fresh blood. Done. Now I just need to wait 36 days for 3 yin demons to form. Han Sha-O smiled as he looked at the Original Demon Cave and turned his head to look at the skeletal warriors on the side. He suddenly realized that the magically refined little skeletons seemed to be attracted to the Original Demon Cave. It set one foot into the Original Demon Cave without Han Sha-O's orders and lay lazily within one of the deep pits. It actually crossed its 2 calf bones and displayed an odd posture. That odd posture looked like enjoyment. Han Sha-O was dumbfounded as he sent out his mental strength and was prepared to command the little skeleton to leave the Original Demon Cave. However, he felt the little skeleton's joy in his heart, greatly startling Han Sha-O. He glanced with a look of surprise and shock at the little skeleton leisurely relaxing in the Original Demon Cave. After a while, Han Sha-O was still unable to understand what was going on. He observed the Original Demon Cave, discovered that it was still operating as usual and that the wraiths were still killing each other within it seemingly unaffected. Han Sha-O shook his head, muttering, "The little skeleton is becoming odder and odder. I'll forget it. It doesn't look like it affects the Matrix operations. I'll just leave him be," he murmured to himself as Han Sha-O walked to the cemetery of death, planning on studying the book of beginner magics of necromancy. He wanted to proceed on 2 fronts and break through both simultaneously. Chapter 67, Sharing in the secrets of the dwarves, Han Sha-o stayed within the Cemetery of Death for the next couple of days, studying the book of foundational magics of necromancy on one hand while looking after the original demon cave. Utilizing the round green ball that most likely originated in the Cemetery of Death, Han Sha-o would receive a large increase in mental strength whilst experiencing a high degree of agony and pain in his mind. Except with his increased usage of the round green ball, Han Sha-o could clearly feel that his mental strength was no longer growing as speedily as before. It looked like this strange round green ball couldn't help him continuously. As the number of times he used it increased, the benefit that Han Sha-o received continually decreased. One day Han Sha-o meditated for a while and left the Cemetery of Death after infusing the original demon cave with his blood and magical yuan. After investigating the vicinity in which he met the dwarves last time, Han Sha-o finally found traces of a dwarf. He followed the dwarf tracks while maintaining his composure. After walking for a while, he finally discovered that the dwarf tracks had stopped in front of a highly concealed cave entrance. There was luxuriant shrubbery near the entrance of the cave and the surroundings had obviously been fixed up. If it weren't for a dwarf moving aside the large patch of leaves, Han Sha-o wouldn't have been able to discover that there was a cave here. After observing the cave entrance for a while, Han Sha-o noticed that several dwarves had appeared nearby again. They were holding iron spades and hammers as they filed into the cave. After a short while, the dwarf who'd given Han Sha-o the bag of beer Bennett was helped out of the cave by two dwarves. He seemed to have been injured. A soft sound came from afar. Han Sha-o's ears were sharp and could immediately tell that it was likely the sounds of magical creatures approaching. He crouched on the branch of a big tree and waited for a while. Shortly after, he saw two windblade wolves slowly approach in the distance. His thoughts moving, Han Sha-o snapped one of the dry branches off the big tree and threw it towards the shrubs next to the cave entrance. The sound of the dry branch falling to the ground obviously attracted the attention of windblade wolves. The two moved according to the noise and padded softly quickly as they changed direction, heading for the cave entrance of the dwarves. When Bennett and the other two dwarves looked around their surroundings after hearing the movement, the two windblade wolves had already appeared in their range of vision. "Oh damn it, it's windblade wolves. Let's hurry and return back to the cave." The injured Bennett threw out an involuntarily complaint upon seeing the two windblade wolves appear and decided to head back into the cave. "Bennett, it's too crowded inside. If these two windblade wolves follow us into the cave, then the ones inside will be in danger." One of the dwarves shook the hammer in his hand as he heard Bennett's words. Bennett thought for a moment after hearing his words, "Then we'll kill these two damned windblade wolves at the door." "No way, it's impossible for the three of us to do so. I think we should let the dwarves within the cave stop mining for now and join forces to kill the two windblade wolves," the dwarf said. Just at this moment, Han Sha-o suddenly jumped down from the big tree and arched his body on the ground, dashing out like lightning. After he revealed himself in the far-off shrubbery, he nimbly dashed towards the two windblade wolves. The dagger in his hand was like a bolt of cold lightning as it shot towards one of the windblade wolves. Han Sha-o followed closely behind with the speed of cheetah, facing down the other windblade wolf with his bare hands. The two windblade wolves had been staring at the three dwarves as fiercely as a tiger does and had their backs to Han Sha-o. The back of one of them had already taken a hit from the fierce strike of Han Sha-o's dagger. The other windblade wolf turned around and sent a blade of wind whistling toward Han Sha-o. While performing his high-speed dash, Han Sha-o suddenly changed direction and magically evaded the windblade's attack, his body already dashing to the front of the windblade wolf. The wolf that had released the windblade didn't give any impression of weakness as it raised its sharp claws, pouncing toward Han Sha-o when it saw that the enemy was at hand. A crossbow bolt from the left sleeve first shot towards the claws of this windblade wolf, with Han Sha-o slamming down on its head using a fist interspersed with the glacial air from the mystical glacial spellfire. With a shrill scream, the windblade wolf fell stiffly to the ground like a block of frozen meat, cold air emanating from its body. On the other side, the dwarves suddenly flung out the sharp axes in their hands, aiming for the other windblade wolf. However, the strength of the two dwarves was visibly subpar to Han Sha-o's. The thrown axe wasn't traveling too fast and the injured windblade wolf can actually still evade it. However, Although it could evade the axes from the two dwarves, it couldn't dodge Han Shao-Oh's crossbow bolt. The Windblade Wolf finally couldn't escape and fell down listlessly. "Oh brave friend, you've saved Bennett again. How could I possibly thank you?" the injured Bennett cried out involuntarily upon seeing Han Shao dispatch of the two Windblade Wolves, calling out loudly to him. After relieving the Windblade Wolves of their magical cores and pelts in a practiced manner, Han Shao waved his hand and smiled. "You shouldn't thank me. These two Windblade Wolves were my prey to begin with. Not only did I not help you, but it was your two friends who helped me with their axes." "You're too polite. Do you not want the bodies?" one of the dwarves asked in astonishment upon seeing Han Shao take only their magical cores and pelts but displayed complete disinterest in the corpses. "Yes, I only need the Windblade Wolf cores and pelts. This way I can sell them for a good price." "Then dear friend, could you give us their bodies?" "Of course, but what do you want them for?" "They're not worth much. The bodies of Windblade Wolves can be used to prepare food." Bennett looked strangely at Han Shao and explained, "To us the flesh of the Windblade Wolves is a very sumptuous delicacy." Han Shao had also eaten Windblade Wolf meat before, but he'd found it dry and hard to chew. It didn't seem to be a delicious type of meat. Who would have thought the dwarves would be interested? Han Shao rather thought it was odd upon hearing Bennett's words, but the dwarves weren't human. Perhaps their habits were different from human habits, Han Shao thought. "Right, what are you doing here?" Han Shao asked. "This is a mining cave that we've discovered. There are some copper and iron ores inside. However, it often collapses inside and large stones will crash down from above. The process of mining has been exceedingly difficult and dangerous. A lot of tribesmen have already been injured. A tribesman was smashed to death yesterday. I was also accidentally hit just now and thus had to come out." Bennett seemed to be kindly disposed toward Han Shao as he blurted out the secret that the dwarves were concealing without hesitation. The other two dwarves had wanted to stop Bennett but realized that Bennett had already finished before they'd had a chance to speak. They blew on their beards and glared at Bennett as if admonishing his undiscerning mouth. "So that's the case. If you don't mind, I can help you with the mining. I think with my help a lot of the dangers will decrease for you guys." Han Shao's thoughts raced as he proposed with a smile. "No, it's too dangerous inside. You'd be smashed by the rocks if you went inside. If you happened to run into a widespread collapse, you wouldn't be able to walk out from there and would be trapped to your death." Bennett offered a reminder out of good faith. "Don't worry, I won't be taking action myself. I'm a necromancer and can summon necromancy creatures. There won't be any problems if the necromancy creatures go in and mine for you." Han Shao smiled. "I see, then let me go in and discuss with them to see if they agree." Bennett thought for a moment, responded and walked back into the cave with the two dwarves helping him walk. After a while one of the dwarves walked out and said politely to Han Shao, "Noble friend, we are willing to share the secrets of this cave with you. Please come in and mine this cave with us." Happiness making its way to his heart, Han Shao said humbly, "Thank you for your trust. I'm very happy to work together with you." After he spoke, the dwarf dragged the bodies of the two Windblade Wolves into the cave and along with Han Shao covered up the cave with tree leaves, finally walking into the cave with Han Shao afterwards. Chapter 68, Black iron ore bestowed from the gods. It was narrower inside the mining cave than Han Shao had thought. The dwarves had shorter statures and could walk around with ease, but Han Shao found it a bit inconvenient. Even with the light from oil lamps along the way, it was still rather gloomy inside the cave. After a few minutes of walking, Han Shao had to start stooping his body. The farther down they walked, the danker and more humid it got. Broken shards of stone could be found all over the ground, and when Han Shao discovered that it was becoming difficult to progress even when stooped over, that was when the three dwarves finally stopped. The dwarves ahead held metal spades and hammers in their hands, exerting themselves to the utmost as they mined. The sounds of tapping rang out continuously. When they discovered that Han Shao had come in, they all involuntarily stopped their motions and measured up Han Shao with suspicious gazes. "The cave will become more and more spacious as we make our way past this narrow juncture. Although there are more iron and copper cores inside, rocks rain down from above when we transport the ores. There was a collapse a few days ago and we spent an enormous amount of effort to reopen the path. Bennett leaned back somewhat tiredly on the hard rock wall as he looked at Han Sha-oh when explaining. Nodding, Han Sha-oh said, "Alright, make some space for me. I'm going to summon the skeletal warriors and have them go inside to mine the ore." In accordance with Han Sha-oh's instructions, the dwarves cleared out of the area starting from those furthest inside the cave. When there was no longer any dwarves within the cave, Han Sha-oh started the necromancy magic incantation. 7 skeletal warriors in a row appeared within the passageway, completely blocking it off. Han Sha-oh had only been able to control 6 skeletal warriors originally, but now that he had meditated using the round green ball, his mental strength had improved again and was now able to manipulate 7 skeletal warriors simultaneously. "Put your iron spades and hammers on the ground. I'll command the skeletal warriors to use your tools and mine the ore inside." After the 7 skeletons had appeared, Han Sha-oh looked at and spoke to the dwarves who had retreated. The dwarves hesitated upon hearing Han Sha-oh's words and then flung out the mining tools in their hands one by one upon Bennett's persuasion. Han Sha-oh manipulated the skeletal warriors, commanded them to cast out the bone daggers from their hands and pick up the mining tools on the ground instead. Each of them arched their bodies and slowly plodded into the depths of the mining cave. A wraith was released and floated into the depths of the cave along with the skeletal warriors according to Han Sha-oh's instructions. With the aid of this wraith, Han Sha-oh could observe the environment surrounding the wraith. With the wraith leading the way, Han Sha-oh could observe the sights of the depths of the cave as if he were there in person. It was as the dwarves had said, the skeletal warriors had to stoop and slowly thread their way through an exceedingly narrow entrance, after which the space became increasingly larger. Except there were no light facilities inside. Thus, Han Sha-oh was unable to clearly see all of his surroundings. As the wraith and the skeletal warriors covered a large distance to the point where Han Sha-oh felt that he would no longer be able to manipulate these dark creatures, he issued the mission to start mining ore. According to the wraith vision intermediary, Han Sha-oh focused his concentration and manipulated the 7 skeletal warriors to start tapping and hitting the ores around them. Loud rumblings noises sounded out accompanying the skeletal warriors' movements. After a short while, Han Sha-oh could clearly feel via the wraith that because of the skeletal warriors digging, the rocks at the top of the mining cave had started to shift. Some large rocks actually fell down after a while, directly smashing the skeletal warrior in a pile of bone fragments. Focusing his concentration, Han Sha-oh closed his eyes and stood in front of the dwarves, carefully manipulating the skeletal warriors. He sent the wraith floating to the top of the cave and observed the loosened rocks with utmost care. He would hastily send the skeletal warriors dodging to the side whenever the rocks fell. After proceeding like this for a while, another skeletal warrior was directly smashed to smithereens by another large rock. Han Sha-oh's mental strength was severely depleted and he felt a wave of vertigo in his mind. He immediately understood that he had overexhausted his mental strength and hastily commanded the remaining 5 skeletal warriors to stop mining or pick up the ore fragments that they'd extracted and start moving them backwards. When the 5 skeletal warriors started moving the ores on the ground one by one to the narrow pass, the dwarves on Bennett's side cheered and started walking to the pass without waiting for Han Sha-oh's instructions. They picked up the ores from there and moved them safely to Han Sha-oh's side. After this went on for a few minutes, Han Sha-oh felt that his mental strength could no longer sustain the skeletal warriors' continued actions, and so immediately and decisively chanted an incantation again, sending the remaining skeletal warriors and the wraith back to the other dimension. At this moment, the cave opening in front of Han Sha-oh was already filled with dozens of large and small pieces of ore. The dwarves cheered as they fell over each other to free the ore from the surrounding rocks, placing the ore into the packs behind their backs. "Oh dear friend, because of your help our haul today is greater than the amount of ore we've obtained in a week. These adorable iron and copper ores can be used to forge beautiful weapons after they've been refined." What a joyful happening! Although Bennett was very tired due to his injuries, he was in extraordinarily fine spirits now as he gazed upon his companions jubilantly knocking off the excess rock and picking up the ores. He excitedly expressed his gratitude to Han Sha-oh. The other dwarves picked up the ores with great delight, laughing heartily as they took out the wine wineskins that they always carried with them, happily pouring beer down their throats, emitting hearty glugging sounds. "Oh goodness, what's this, what's this?" a dwarf suddenly screamed shrilly, attracting the attention of all the other dwarves as they all surged up to this dwarf. Han Sha-o was also similarly surprised and glanced involuntarily at this dwarf, but he had already been surrounded by the other dwarves, completely blocking Han Sha-o's vision. He speculated to himself, was something the matter? Just as Han Sha-o's mind was rife with suspicion, Bennett suddenly lost his composure and laughed wildly, even throwing the wineskin of beer into the air as he cut a caper. Exceedingly elated, charged yells came out of his mouth. "Black iron! Damn black iron! I am sure this is black iron! Oh my gosh, there's black iron inside! The chief will go crazy when he finds out about our find." The other dwarves also flushed thoroughly red upon hearing Bennett's words, as they too danced wildly, raising their hammers to crazily hammer at the walls on all sides. The loud sounds they raised rather gave Han Sha-o a fright. Han Sha-o heaved a private sigh of relief upon hearing Bennett's words, understanding that the dwarves must have obtained a marvelous metal to be so crazy with excitement. He too was happy on the inside. After a while, Han Sha-o asked after the dwarves, who were finally began to calm down, "Bennett, what kind of ore is this black iron? Is it very precious?" Bennett nodded repeatedly like a little chick becking at rice, saying excitedly, "Of course, exceedingly precious, precious to the utmost. The density and hardness of black iron is the highest amongst all ores, but its weight is the least amongst all metal. It also never rusts and can change color through adding other materials. It's the most supreme material in crafting weapons and a gift bestowed upon us from the gods." Han Sha-o was about to congratulate them when something suddenly flashed through his mind and a patch of memories flooded in. He suddenly realized that according to the properties of this black iron, the black iron according to Chu Kanglan's memories was actually a precious material used to forge magical treasures. Mystical metal. What a pity there's only a small piece. Looks like there's only enough to forge a small dagger. After expressing his excitement, Bennett looked at the black iron in the dwarf's hand and said with a bit of regret, "Bennett, don't be dejected, there's bound to be more black iron inside. Perhaps we'll be able to mine a larger piece next time, that way we can forge the sharpest weapon." The dwarf Benson said, "Dear friend, thank you so much for your help. We are willing to share our mining cave with you. Can you continue to help us? We are willing to share the ore that is mined." Bennett turned a face full of desire toward Han Sha-o and pleaded after hearing Benson's words, "I'm very happy that you trust me so, and am also quite willing to help you, but I'm too weary today and need to rest tonight. I'll come back tomorrow and continue helping you mine, all right?" Han Sha-o chuckled privately to himself and said humbly to Bennett, of course, we'll be here early tomorrow morning with the village chief. I hope you can stop by again." Bennett hastened to reply. Nodding, Han Sha-o smiled, "Then I'll see you tomorrow." Han Sha-o didn't leave with a single piece of ore after saying this, and walked in a natural and unrestrained manner to the mouth of the mining cave, leaving behind a few wildly excited dwarves continuously taking large gulps of beer. Chapter 69. Obtaining the friendship of the dwarves. When his mental strength was depleted, the replenishment he received from meditating came at a noticeably faster pace compared to his normal training conditions. When Han Sha-o returned to the cemetery of death and meditated for a night, his mental strength was once again filled to the brim. Thus, Han Sha-o deduced such a conclusion. However, for necromancers, they would be unable to release any sort of magic if they had no mental strength. This would undoubtedly place them in a very precarious position. Therefore, no mage would expend all of their mental strength in one shot under normal circumstances. Since the dwarves were willing to share the mining cave, Han Sha-o couldn't help but form other plans. There seemed to be high amounts of metal and copper ore inside the cave. Therefore, it would take quite a while for the dwarves to excavate the entire cave. For Han Sha-o, he could absolutely leverage summoning creatures to increase the speed of mining. If these copper and iron ores were shipped to the Empire, they were sure to fetch rich rewards for Han Sha-o, particularly the black iron ore inside. According to Han Sha-o's understanding and the dwarves' expressions today, Han Sha-o understood that these black metal ores were very precious resources and perhaps could be sold for whopping prices. There should be quite a few dwarf villages in the dark forest, and there weren't too many dwarves in this group. All of them them combined probably didn't need this much metal and copper ore. Since this was the case, Han Shao made some other plans in his heart. After infusing fresh blood and magic yuan into the original demon cave, Han Shao left the cemetery of death early in the morning and rushed in the direction of the mining cave. Han Shao had thought that he had arrived early enough, but he discovered that the dwarves had already arrived by the time he arrived at the entrance of the cave. There was double the usual amount of dwarves today, and it seemed like they had been up all night long due to their excitement. Their eyes were all bloodshot, but their spirits were still highly stimulated. One of them had a grizzled beard and was leaning on a staff in the middle of solemnly relaying instructions to the other dwarves. All the other dwarves, which included Bennett, all listened respectfully to his admonishments. Purposefully letting the sound of his steps attract the attention of the dwarves, Bennett immediately raised the iron hammer in his hand and called out when he saw Han Shao appear, "Hi dear friend, we've waited for you for a long time." When Han Shao had walked close, the old dwarf with a grizzled beard bowed in the manner of humans to express his thanks to Han Shao. He said benevolently, "Brave and strong friend, thank you for your repeated help. I am Chief Calvin of the Dwarf village and am very pleased to make your acquaintance. I'm called Han Shao and am very honored to obtain your trust." This place was far from the academy and no one knew of his identity. Han Shao therefore used his true name to interact with the dwarves. "Brave Han, your name is quite marvelous. I've never heard of anyone using such a name. Hey, the children say that you're a man worth trusting. Our village is willing to share the secrets of this mining cave with you. I just hope that we can coexist in harmony in the future." Calvin first looked at Han Shao oddly, seemingly befuddled by his name, but his face then became wreathed in smiles and continued to talk. "Then I think we can begin working." Although Calvin was neither in a rush nor too leisurely, the gazes of the other dwarves all flitted towards the cave behind them, obviously exposing their eager thoughts. Han Shao did not speak further and directly proposed to start working. "No rush," Calvin thought and stared at Han Shao. "Han, why are you helping us like this? We are willing to share the mining cave with you, but why didn't you take half of the iron and copper cores yesterday?" The elderly indeed thought more, and it seemed that the dwarves weren't an exception. Han Shao looked at Calvin, was silent for a moment and explained, "First, I also had a bone to pick with the forest trolls. Not to mention I was conquered by the death-defying battle spirit displayed by Bennett and the others. That's the reason as to why I helped them the first time. In addition to this, they actually helped me fight off the Windblade wolves. Those 2 Windblade wolves were actually my prey, and helping you mine ore in the cave is just a small matter. I don't know how to forge weapons, and I don't think I'll have any use if I take the iron and copper ores. That's why I didn't take any when I left." "Elder Calvin, you must believe me, I really don't have any other dubious motives. Yes, Chief Han is a great friend and he's not like the other humans." Bennett suddenly spoke up and said to the old dwarf. Nodding, Calvin bowed toward Han Shao, saying humbly, "My apologies Han, I'm older and have seen too many wily humans. That's why I questioned you. I hope you don't mind." "Your way is correct, I completely understand your concerns. It's difficult for us to mine the ore further inside these caves with our strength alone. Since we're willing to share our secret with you, we're willing to share all that is inside with you, including the black metal bestowed by the gods. We're willing to share everything equally with you and hope you don't reject it, otherwise we'll truly be embarrassed." Calvin thought and made this solemn promise. Upon hearing his words, Han Shao thought that although the dwarves were stubborn and possessed fiery tempers, they were indeed a race worth befriending. Han Shao became a bit shamefaced about his own intentions after hearing Calvin's promise. He thought deeply for a moment. "Please be at ease, Elder, I absolutely agree with your suggestion. In addition, when I have enough black metal, may I sincerely request that you forge it into a weapon for me?" "No problem Han, be at ease. If there is enough black metal, I will personally supervise them and create a weapon worthy of your use," Calvin promised with a smile. "Alright, I think we can begin working." Han Shao finally set aside his plans, thinking that his plans for the Demon Slayer Edge were finally in motion. He smiled as he headed into the cave with the dwarves. After a half day of mining, Han Shao's mental strength was depleted once again and he left the cave in utter exhaustion. Today's haul was even richer than yesterday's. Apart from large amounts of iron and copper ore, they had once again obtained 2 pieces, one large and one small, of black metal. Han Shao magnanimously handed the bigger piece over to the village chief and threw the smaller piece into his space ring. At the entrance of the cave, the dwarves packed everything away neatly and shouldered the ores with smiles that brightened their faces, planning on carting today's haul back to the village. "Dear Han, what kind of weapon do you wish to see forged?" Calvin asked before he left. After thinking for a while, Han Shao took out his dagger and drew a sketch of the demon slayer edge on the ground. He pointed at the weapon outline on the ground and explained to Calvin, "This type of weapon would be nice. I would like the best and the sharpest. Would you be able to complete it?" Calvin squinted his eyes and stooped down, observing the demon slayer edge sketch for a while. He spoke in deep thought. "I've never seen a weapon like this. I think this will be interesting. There should be no problem in creating it, but if you would like the best and the sharpest, we would need a few more materials. Our village likely doesn't have enough of them in supply." His thoughts racing, Han Shao thought of the Boost Merchant Guild and privately thought that he really was going all out for this demon slayer wretch. He said, "Please tell me what other materials are needed, Elder. I will find ways to collect all the missing or insufficient materials. I need a high-grade weapon." "Do you have pen and paper?" "Of course." Han Shao took out the pen and paper he had prepared before going to the cemetery of death from his space ring and handed it to Calvin. "Don't worry about the insufficient materials. I will find a way to gather all the materials together as quickly as possible." "Then all right." Calvin nodded and started noting down a list of materials on the paper. When he finished, he handed it over to Han Shao, saying, "Han, as long as these materials are gathered, I can assure you that I will forge a weapon with an unparalleled edge for you. When the amount of my black metal is enough to forge this weapon, I will think of a way to collect these materials. I will be here earlier tomorrow to help mine the ore," Han Shao said as he left the mines. Just like this, Han Shao spent his subsequent 10 days with the dwarves mining the caves. When Han Shao had obtained enough black metal and the dwarves had all obtained a rich haul, Calvin proposed temporarily halting their mining operation and said that they should start forging these ores into weapons. They could mine again in the future when they ran out of weapons. Han Shao had already obtained the dwarves' trust during this time and accepted Calvin's invitation to visit their village and drink heavily in celebration. Thus, he knew the correct way to their dwellings. After Han Shao infused fresh blood and magic yuan into the original demon cave earlier than usual, he then made direct use of the transportation matrix to leave the cemetery of death. Chapter 70. Help me kill 2 lackeys. Han Shao appeared directly within the secluded tomb located in the mountains behind the academy through use of the transportation matrix in the blind spot that he had dug. He put away the 6 magic sticks and removed the stone slab that blocked the entrance of the tomb before walking out of the tomb. The sky was only just brightening hazily and Han Shao didn't walk towards the academy. Rather, he took his bearings and circled the area, walking directly to the northern streets according to the directions indicated on Fabian's card. The northern part of the city of Asen contained many tall ornate buildings. Many of the empire's nobles and aristocrats lived here. The city's defense guard was also found in the highest numbers here, and there were many armored guards wielding various weapons patrolling early in the morning. Han Shao cleaned up his clothes and wiped off the dust he had just acquired, walking towards the northern street according to Fabian's instructions. Afterwards, Han Shao stopped in front of a house. After a while, there were no guards at the door and it didn't seem as conspicuous as the ones around it. Han Shao walked up to the front door, gathered his concentration and looked around him, finally knocking when he concluded that no one was paying attention to him. Last time in the Boost Merchant Guild, Phoebe had killed the assassins from Shadow Ghost and shifted the blame onto him. When Grover left the chamber, his expression was apparent that he was harboring resentment in his heart. According to Phoebe's explanation, whether it was Shadow Ghost or Grover, both had associates who could kill her at any time. Therefore, Han Shao had to be extremely careful when returning to the Empire this time. He was deathly afraid of attracting Shadow Ghost or Grover's attention. After a while, a butler with warm features opened the door and gazed at Han Shao, bowing with a smile. "Good morning, sir. Whom are you looking for?" "My name is Brian and I'm here to discuss some matters of business with Fabian." Han Shao also responded politely. "Mr. Brian, I've heard Fabian speak of you. Please follow me." The butler immediately turned his body sideways upon hearing Han Shao's Sha'o's name and invited him in. When Han Sha'o had walked in, the butler stuck at his head, carefully observed for a while in front of the door and finally closing the door tightly afterwards. He was quite cautious and prudent as he led Han Sha'o inside. The buildings inside were still quite ordinary. It all seemed rather dull when compared to the luxury of the Boost Merchant Guild. The surface area of the buildings were far less expansive and spacious than those of the Boost Merchant Guild. The butler led Han Sha'o into the main lobby after walking for only a minute. An ordinary-looking maid served tea and snacks, after which she said, "Please wait a moment, Mr. Brian, I'll go get Fabian for you." When the butler left, the maid also left the lobby after pouring a full cup of tea for Han Sha'o. After a while, the chubby Fabian walked in from outside the lobby, laughing heartily. Bright and clear laughter rang from his mouth, but his face looked a bit wan and his spirits didn't seem too good. He seemed to have been going through a difficult time lately. "It's Brian. It's so good to see that you're safe and sound." Fabian pulled out a stool for himself after entering and laughed loudly. "I too am very glad to see you unharmed. I hid after leaving the Boost Merchant Guild last time, so whether it's Shadow Ghost or Grover's men, they'll all be unable to find me. Therefore you don't need to worry about me at all, but you, on the other hand, you don't seem to have been living that well." Han Sha'o sized up Fabian as he spoke slowly. "Don't mention it. Grover is becoming more and more domineering lately. Our lives have become a bit difficult." "Right, what business would you like to discuss this time?" Fabian sighed and said with some resignation. Han Sha'o didn't want to pay attention to the old scores between Grover and them, and Fabian wasn't willing to truly discuss his feelings in detail. He thought for a bit and said, "I've come to find you this time not to sell any resources but to purchase a few rare materials from you." "Oh, what rare materials?" "Take a look at this list. I need all the materials on it." "How many gold coins would this cost?" Han Sha'o handed over the list that Chief Calvin of the Dwarf village had written out to Fabian and asked. Fabian took the list from Han Sha'o's hands and looked carefully at it, thinking for a bit before saying to Han Sha'o, "Brian, even I don't know some of the materials on this list. I'm afraid I can't make the decision. If you don't mind, I'd like to ask our Miss Phoebe to discuss with you." Han Sha'o was startled, thinking, did Calvin ask for some very precious items? He mused for a bit and nodded. "All right, it's the same if I talk to Miss Phoebe. I have urgent need of these items. When can I see her?" "Our Miss is right here. I'll go request her instructions. Please wait a moment." Fabian rose and left Han Sha'o with these words before leaving the lobby. Phoebe swept a nonchalant gaze over Han Sha'o after she entered, making him feel a bit befuddled. She found a seat and thoroughly perused the list that Han Sha'o had brought. She furrowed her brow slightly as she lifted her head to look at Han Sha'o. "These materials should be for the use of forging weapons. Some of the items within are very rare indeed. You've come to the right person to purchase them." Joy flooding his heart, Han Sha'o kept a calm expression on his face and randomly tapped his right finger on the table. He said lightly, "What's your price?" Nodding, Phoebe's wise eyes sparkled cunningly as a slight trace of a beautiful curve marked her slightly tightened lips. She said, "With the exception of the black gold ore, we can sell all the other ingredients to you. Particularly because you helped us last time, I'll even give you a discount. It will only cost you 3,500 gold. This price is absolutely fair." 3,500 gold. Han Sha'o's heart leapt in shock. He hadn't thought that the 10 or so missing ingredients that Calvin had listed would be so pricey, and judging from the connotations from Phoebe's words, this price was already quite low, and that the black gold ore seemed to be of some difficulty. His brow furrowing slightly, Han Sha'o thought deeply and said, 3,500 gold is no problem, but is your guild unable to obtain black gold ore? Black gold ore is the same as black iron ore. They're materials of the utmost quality used for forging weapons. The price of these kinds of ore is beyond your imagination. A piece of black gold ore the size of a fingernail can fetch the price of 5,000 gold on the marketplace. Under normal circumstances, there is no supply for both black gold and black iron ore at any price. I have a piece of black gold ore the size of my thumb in my possession, but I only gained this piece of black gold ore at extreme effort. I was planning on forging the best sword for my respected teacher when I collected enough material. That's why I've kept it all this time. Therefore, even though this piece of black gold ore can satisfy your needs, I will not sell it to you no matter how high a price you offer. Phoebe's face was solemnly grave as she said resolutely to Han Sha-oh. Phoebe was a swordswoman and Han Sha-oh could figure out with even his toes what kind of level of character her teacher would be. The kinds of swords used by such a character would naturally be uncommonly sharp. As Phoebe had reached the level of sword master at such a tender age, she must not have been taught at an ordinary academy of magic and force. Phoebe was a mysterious character indeed. However, Han Sha-oh truly needed the black gold ore. He wanted to create the best possible demon slayer edge in one go and naturally needed the exact amount of the rarest materials. If he was short on the valuable black gold ore, then the quality of the demon slayer edge would decrease greatly. This was what Han Sha-oh didn't wish to see the most. His brows locked tightly. Han Sha-oh pondered hard and finally asked Phoebe, apart from you, who else would have black gold ore in their possession? Don't wish for the stars. I think even if someone had some, they would cherish it like treasure and wouldn't sell it to you. Phoebe looked at Han Sha-oh's anxious expression with interest, a hint of a faint smile curving at her lips as she said with some pride. Han Sha-oh felt an involuntary wave of depression when he heard these words, but suddenly detected Phoebe's unintentional hint of a smile at her lips when he was shaking his head and sighing. His thoughts spun furiously as Han Sha-oh thought silently. He finally stared straight at Phoebe and asked slowly, Miss Phoebe, if you're willing to give the black gold ore in your possession to me, you can name whatever condition you wish. Phoebe started and looked at Han Sha-oh in some surprise. She then frowned and pretended to turn the matter over in her mind. She finally said with some reluctance, I can bear the pain of giving up something I value very much because you helped us last time, but you must help me with another task. Help in doing what? Han Sha-oh privately thought that Phoebe had indeed been scheming early on. Although he felt angry, he didn't let it show on his face and responded with a grave face. Fight by my side and assist me in killing the two lackeys most loyal to Grover, Darnell and Una, those two beaches that should be hacked to death by 1,000 cuts. Frost grew on Phoebe's charming face as she spoke through gritted teeth. What are their strength respectively? Han Sha-oh's face was calm as he asked. Darnell is a senior swordsman and his strength is almost at the level of breaking through to swordmaster, while Una is a fire adept mage and her strength is extremely frightening. The two are a couple who are beyond depraved and exceedingly shameless. They basically do not spend long amounts of time apart from each other. They currently both live within the Boost Merchant Guild. If you're willing to aid me, I have a 60% chance of assassinating them without a sound. Phoebe's body abruptly straightened, highlighting the soaring twin peaks in front of her chest as she spoke excitedly. I promise to help you. Han Sha-oh didn't hesitate as he spoke in a low voice.